Is Warframe classed as an MMO? Sky, why would you want to join this stream and start an argument? Why would you want to do that? Is Warframe classed? Wars have been started over less, Sky. You can't just come into a chat and ask if Warframe is an MMORPG. Nobody actually knows what MMOs are. I have spoken to people who claim that EverQuest, Ultima Online, Albion Online, WoW. I've genuinely spoken to people who claim that these games aren't MMORPGs because in their mind, the word massively means at least 1 million people at the same time. Like, on the same server, in the same place. And you can never please everyone. It's a no true Scotsman fallacy again. It is a purity test of an acronym. Is Warframe an MMO? We don't know. Warframe is a very fun game where you play a space ninja jumping around all over the place, shooting a cool weapon. Should you play it? Yeah, it's fun. Why not? Go for it. Have a good time with it. Yes, exactly. The people that know the least about Warframe are the people that have spent the most amount of time in it. Because when you say to them, hey, what is this game? Most of them go, you know what, I don't know. It's fun, so they're going to keep playing it, but they don't know what it is. Nobody quite knows what Warframe is, apart from fun. And sometimes that's all you need. Kalatek, is the no true Scotsman something about narrow-mindedness? Ah, okay, right, gotcha. So, it's a bit of a reoccurring joke that Scottish people are very proud. And they pride themselves on being bloody tough. And the no true Scotsman fallacy is the idea that if you say, oh, I am this, someone else will respond, actually, you aren't this unless you've done this. And then someone else will respond, that's not even all of it. You won't become this unless you've done this. And then someone else turns around and goes, well, that's nothing. You're actually not this unless you've done this. It's about almost competitive, not necessarily suffering, but it's a level of competitive engagement within any kind of process that is telling people that their experience of the process is lesser because somebody else's is greater. It's competitive one-upsmanship. That's what it is. And the reason we call it the no true Scotsman fallacy is because we say something like, oh, you know, I had to walk to school when it was cold. And someone will say, well, no true Scotsman walked to school unless it was actually, you know, snowing and freezing. And then someone else will come up with, well, no true Scotsman actually got to walk to school. They had to carry all their siblings. And then someone else will be like, well, no true and then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So when someone says, what is an MMORPG? The answer is we don't know because people keep trying to change what the hell the acronym means and no one can agree on what the word massively actually implies. It's the idea that you're not going to win an argument because you guarantee that somebody will come out of the woodwork somewhere and say, well, actually, it isn't that because of this. That's what it is. MMORPG, many men online role-playing girls. I've had to explain it so many times. An MMORPG is an online fishing minigame with another game built around it. That's all it is. It's an online fishing minigame, normally with a combat system. Is Facebook an MMORPG? Don't know. I've given up trying to work out what things are or aren't, to be honest. If it doesn't have fishing, it's not an MMORPG. That's why Warframe added fishing. Are dating websites pay to win MMORPGs? Not necessarily. Yeah, the other question is, what does RPG mean? Does roleplay get... No one quite knows. Sometimes, and this is what I have to explain to people, sometimes people want acronyms to be actual, logical, 100% defined things. They need an acronym to be almost like a scientific definition. When, let's be honest, the acronyms and the genres and the descriptors that we use for games are all about vibes. It's all about the vibe. It's all about the feeling, the idea, the maybe. The only way you can truly describe a video game is by just saying exactly what that video game is. What we want to do by using the descriptors is slowly but surely reduce down the content of the game and the people it would appeal to into a smaller and smaller and smaller group so you kind of know what you're getting. It is vibes matching. That's all it is. RPG means distribute points in stats and or skills. Okay. Does it mean that you can gain points in stats and skills, or does it mean that you have to distribute them? Because in that case, Burnout 3 is an RPG. Does it mean that the player has the choice of where they put the stats? This is the problem with any type of description of it. If a role-play game is a game in which a player allocates stats, then there are RPGs that don't have that, and there are non-RPG games that do have that. I mean, Chrono Trigger, I don't think lets you allocate stats, you just level up. The Final Fantasy games just kind of let you level up with stuff. Hard disagree it has anything to do with distributing stats. It should have to do with the different roles you can assume. Okay. So it's about player role mechanically within it. Should a player be able to assume different roles? I mean, is Dark Souls an RPG? The role you assume is always hero. Or by roles, are you on about mechanical changes? This is the complexity of all of it. We just straight up don't know. That's arguable. That's the problem. All of it's arguable. Because Dark Souls gives you a load of different stuff to upgrade pretty much all the time. The problem with it being an RPG is when you say this game's an RPG, you kind of know what kind of vibes you're going to get. Must we categorize everything? Tiger, what I think is important is that having broad categories helps. But expecting those categories to be 100% defined and stuck to doesn't help. Because is StarCraft an RPG? Knowing that you can upgrade during each match the power and the toughness of the units. Because that's a level of upgrade. I don't think anyone would describe StarCraft as an RPG. I think they describe it as a real-time strategy game, an RTS. StarCraft 2 has RPG elements in the campaign. It does. But if someone started playing it expecting an RPG, do you think they would be annoyed if they, got given the game they got? Is Call of Duty an RPG at some point? This is what I'm trying to get at in general. It is very difficult to ascribe a specific genre to a game and say that if the game does not have everything that genre has, it's a failure. That's not how it works. Factorio is an RPG. You take on the role of a world. Exactly. At that point, is Grand Theft Auto an RPG? I truly do think it's one of those you know it when you see it moments. You can feel it. The sword will drop. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. But can you notice that what we've done is we're actually going to get into the no true Scotsman fallacy about RPGs. We're going to get into the, well, actually, that can't be an RPG because it doesn't have this. And then we'll go, well, actually, that doesn't have this, but that needs this, but that needs this. I'm like, what? What? That's what's going to happen. There's too many qualifiers for it. That's true. It's actually only an MMORPG if it comes from the MMO region of France. Everything else is just sparkling online multiplayer. I don't make the rules. That's just how it is. That's legally how it is. I actually had an interesting video about this that I made a while back. Do you guys want to know something interesting? Most video game descriptors are objectively right or wrong because they actually talk about the mechanical aspects of the game. For example, if someone says first-person shooter, what they have done is they have immediately given you a camera angle. The camera angle of first person. And shooter, as in mechanics it will have in the game, you shoot things. So you can look at a game and say, is this a first-person shooter? Objectively, yes or no. You can talk about driving games. Does this game have driving? Third-person cover shooter. Is the camera angle third person? Can you get into cover? Do you shoot at the enemies? Okay, yeah, cool. That's like objectively correct. The problem is that RPG doesn't talk about a camera angle. It doesn't talk about specific mechanics. It doesn't talk about how you're going to interact with the game. That's where the problem comes in. The issue of it being an RPG is it doesn't have any objective descriptors within it. If someone says this is a tabletop game, okay, cool, you play it on the top of a table. Is Gallagher a third-person shooter? I think that's what we would generally call a shmup, which is shoot 'em up, which is normally a vertical scrolling, upward shooting game. A side-scrolling beat 'em up straight away. The descriptor side-scrolling. We've immediately given ourselves a very specific camera angle. Isometric RPG. When we say isometric, we've locked down to a camera angle. Platformer game, as in there'll be lots of precision jumping and your movement through the game will matter. But then you get stuff where games start to blur genres. There's bits that are first person, bits that are third person, bits that have driving in them, bits that have stealth, bits that have mechanics, bits that have crafting, bits that have narrative choices. That's why video game designers want to include so many bloody genres within their game, because you can then stick more genres on which they think has a greater market appeal. The thing is that game developers tends to understand that sticking a load of genres into your game do not necessarily make it a better game. But game marketers and producers understand that the total market appeal increases when you have more genres attached to your marketing materials, and so they start to add stuff that games don't need into them. I don't think the newest Tomb Raider game needed a crafting system, but they wanted to put crafting on that little box. They wanted to tick that, say, hey, our game's got crafting, and so they stuck it in. Unfortunately, and this is what I'm going to have to try and explain to people, when you try and appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. When you try and say this game's got everything, nobody wants it. But why does nobody want it? Well, this is what I try and explain to businesses all the time. Let's imagine you go out for your friends with a meal, and someone wants curry, someone wants pizza, someone wants ice cream, someone wants pancakes, and somebody wants super hot wings. If you just chucked all of that stuff into a blender, blended it into a paste, poured it into a cup, and gave it to everyone, technically, everyone's getting a little bit of what they want, but they're getting more of what they don't want, in a way that they don't want it. So just because your game has something does not mean it's got that thing in the way that appeals to people that like that thing. It is very important to occasionally step back and ask yourself, right, if we're appealing to this market, why? What can we do to make that market actually buy our product? And this is why when marketers go, oh, but surely the kids will want this because it's got crafting and it's got platforming and it's got shooting and it's got RPGs and it's got narrative choices. I'm like, no, stop. Which of these does it do better than anything else? Which of these is the best? And they're like, well, it just does everything. In that case, it does nothing. You don't need to find something that does everything. Find something that does something better than something else so people have a reason to come and play it. But marketers don't think about the game, they just think about the market appeal. And that is a conversation I've had with a couple of people before. A couple of people who are big in business. And they're like, what does the modern market want? The modern market wants quality. Yeah, but maybe we can give them quality in everything. No, you can't. Give them quality in one thing. You had this argument with your boss. You told him you can have quantity or quality, not both. Yeah, it's one of the reasons that I've put my MMORPG channel separate to the retro gaming channel. Can't have both. Yeah, you would think that the rise of specific indie games does allow people. This is why I prefer. Have you guys played a game called Nidhogg? I prefer Nidhogg 1 over Nidhogg 2. Nidhogg 1 is a really simple stickman fighting game with surprisingly deep tactical choices. I think Nidhogg 1 is just more fun than Nidhogg 2. I think they just added way too much stuff. I prefer the art style, I prefer the flow, I prefer the vibes, I prefer the tactical engagement, I prefer the mechanics of it. And you know what will happen? I guarantee this. Some business exec who doesn't play games will look at Nidhogg 1 and then look at Nidhogg 2, screenshots or videos. They'll point to 2 and they'll say, that one's better. And they'll say it's better because the graphics are slightly different, because there's more choice, because there's more options, because there's different weapons, because there's a load more variety into it. And you have to say, look, this does not make it better, that makes it different. That's the thing. Oh, you played Nidhogg a lot. Nidhogg was great. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely amazing game. If we are ever at some kind of gaming cafe and there is a game of Nidhogg in the background, we're playing. That's what's happening.